President, please be seated. The court is now in session. Today the chamber continues to hear the testimony of the current witness. And Ms. Sakobuti, please report the attendance of the parties and other individuals to today's proceedings. Grazie, Mr. President. For today's proceedings, all parties to this case are present. Mr. Nunji is present in the holding cell downstairs. He has waived his right to be present in the courtroom. The waiver has been delivered to the greffier. The civil party who is to conclude his testimony today, that is Mr. Sunwood, is present in the courtroom, and there is no reserved witness today. Thank you. President, thank you, Ms. Sakobuti. The chamber now decides on the request by Nunji. The chamber has received a waiver from Nunji dated 31st March 2016, which states that due to his health, headache, back pain, he cannot sit or concentrate for long, and in order to effectively participate in future hearings, he requests to waive his presence at the 31st March 2016 hearing. Having seen the medical report of Nunji by the duty doctor for the accused at the ECCC, dated 31st March 2016, which states that Nunji has back pain and feels dizzy when he sits for long, and recommends that the chamber shall grant him his request so that he can follow the proceedings remotely from the holding cell downstairs. Based on the above information and pursuant to Rule 81.5 of the ECCC internal rules, the chamber grants Nunji his request to follow today's proceedings remotely from the holding cell downstairs via an audio-visual means. The chamber instructs the AV unit personnel to bring the proceedings to the room downstairs so that Nunji can follow. That applies for the whole day. I'd like to give the floor to the defense teams. First, to the defense team for Nunji to put questions to the civil party. You may proceed. I noticed that Judge Lavanger wants to take the floor. You may proceed, Judge.
Oui, merci.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, civil party. Mr. Sunwood, yesterday evening, before the court adjourned, you were provided with a document which is a list of about 100 names, apparently names of people who were detained at S21. Did you have the time to review this list and to read the names on that list?
Yes, I've read the list, but I do not recognize any names on the list. I do not know any names on the list.
Bien, je vous remercie.
Fine. This is an issue we will deal with more in detail when we will be considering the facts tied to S21, but now let me move on to another series of questions regarding your statements about forced marriages. If I understood what you told us yesterday well, you said that you were asked to get married, but that you did not accept that, and therefore you did not get married. So is that what we must understand from your testimony?
បាទ
Yes, I made my protest to the upper level since I was rather young, and I was successful with my protest.
Est-ce que vous vous souvenez d'avoir été entendu?
Do you remember having been interviewed by Wesu, Kirk's interpreter, by the victims unit of this court? Because we here have on the case file a supplementary information form in which it appears that you said you were forced to get married in 1975. Do you remember having said such a thing?
Et j'ajoute que vous êtes...
And let me add that you were quite specific about this. You even gave the name of the woman you were forced to marry. And then you explained that you had left for Phnom Penh and that you never saw that woman again. So does this somehow jog your memory? Did you say such a thing? And if that is the case, why doesn't this match what you are telling us now and what you told us yesterday?
The person who interviewed me might make that mistake. In fact, the marriage was arranged for me, and that in fact I was supposed to marry a female comrade, Neil, but as I said, I made my protest heard to Angka, and then I didn't actually get married. And I was asked by the interviewer whether I got married with Neil, and then I said that the arrangement was made, but I made my protest and then I didn't actually marry her.
Est-ce que vous avez...
Did you attend the marriages of other people? And if that is the case, how many people got married and what happened right after the ceremony?
Yes, I was there. And before the arranged marriage was made, they organized those people from different locations and they matched them during the event. And actually, before they got married, they had to make a commitment that they had to be honest to one another, be faithful to one another. If not, then they would be accused of not following the instructions of Angka. After the marriage, they would be monitored whether they consummated the marriage or not, and then such a report will be made to the upper echelon.
And this monitoring, making sure that the marriage was consummated, is this something that you saw yourself, or is this something that you were told about?
I only heard from those who actually engage in the monitoring of those married couples, and if they loved each other or not after the marriage, they would have to make such a report to the upper level.
And who were these people who were in charge of making sure that the marriage had been consummated or not? Who were these people? Were these people who were in the army? Were these militiamen? Who were these people?
The marriage couples were those combatants in the military unit, and those who engaged in the monitoring the marriage were also soldiers. In fact, those married couples were allowed to live in a row of small huts, and they would be subject to monitoring of their consummation.
ថាយើងមិនគោរព
And if they didn't consummate the marriage, then a report will be made to the upper level that they disobeyed the instruction of Angka.
And if such a thing occurred, that is to say, if newlyweds would not consummate their marriage, do you know if they suffered consequences from that? Do you know what would happen in such a case, or what happened in such a case?
The upper level would take them for re-education. If the woman didn't love the husband, then the woman would be re-educated that she should love the husband based on the instruction of Angka, and that they had to listen and obey the orders of Angka.
Les mariages.
And the ceremonies that you attended took place in which year exactly? When?
The marriage ceremony was held at the division that is in Koh and there were 7 couples who got married. In fact, there were 8, including myself. But since I made my protest, then only the 7 couples were arranged to get married. Since we were combatants, the marriage ceremony took place at the division.
And do you remember the year?
It was in mid-1976 when the 7 couples were arranged to marry.
Were there other ceremonies, or was that the only one you were aware of, or were there others?
That was the only marriage ceremony that I knew of, since I myself was arranged to get married during that event.
Were all soldiers in Division 920 forced to get married? Or simply some of them?
អត់ទេអត់មាន
No, not every combatant. Angka selected those combatants. For example, for male combatants who were 30 years old or over, and as for the female combatant, when they were around 29 or 30 years old, then Angka would organize the marriage for them. And this did not happen to combatants who were 17 or 18 years old.
I believe that yesterday you said that you were born in 1957. Is that the case?
បាទត្រូវ
Yes, that is correct.
Je vais passer à un...
Well, now I'm going to move on to another and last topic. You also said in your civil party application that you underwent training in Karachi before you went to Mondulkiri, on your way to Mondulkiri. And in Karachi, you were taught the 12 moral commandments. So do you remember that?
បាទ
Yes, I recall that. At that time, we were provided military training as well as the moral issues. That is the 12 moral commandments that combatants should not touch any property or belonging of the civilians. Even one chili should not be picked. And that we had to discipline ourselves not to engage in any love affairs with other female combatants.
ខ្ញុំបានរៀនបាទអាន
And that's what I learned during that training.
សៅលឿន
Were you told what the purpose of these 12 commandments was? What was the aim? Why were soldiers required to follow these 12 revolutionary principles?
We were taught the 12 moral commandments that we should strictly adhere to the disciplines and the orders of our superiors and of Angkar, and that we had to implement the instructions or orders fully from Angkar, and that we should not betray Angkar at all.
ថាមិនអោយកុហកអង្គការ
And we were told not to deceive to Angkar, and that we had to be loyal to Angkar and the party.
I'm going to read out an excerpt of an article that appeared in Revolutionary Youth. This is issue 10 of October 1978. It's document E3/765. The Khmer ERN is 00376472 to 376507, and I would like to focus on the French ERN 00540021 and English 005399899290. And in this article, it is said that it's necessary to apply the 12 moral principles in order to allow the revolution to succeed. And we say that if that is not the case, it will be a failure. And the following is said in particular. And this time, so if the 12 principles are indeed followed, the revolution should become the servants of the Vietnamese expansionist invaders, and who are also race exterminators and territory swallowers. And this would be a terrible situation for sure. This is a great danger for all of us who are revolutionaries, as for the nation, as for the population, and as for our revolutionary movement. Free translation. So, do you remember having heard similar statements regarding this necessity of following the 12 revolutionary principles in order to fight against the Vietnamese invader?
But
It is hard for me to fully understand the 12 moral commandments. What I knew is that I had to follow the orders and instructions of my superiors. And that's what I did. And it was part of the 12 moral commandments, and that I did not touch any belonging or property of the civilians. That was my understanding of the 12 moral commandments.
Est-ce que vous
Do you remember if some of the points regarding these commandments regarded the attitude that one must adopt vis-à-vis the enemy?
As for the 12 moral commandments, in my understanding is that we must not collude or cooperate with the enemy at whatever cost. But as I said, I was not that knowledgeable in the details of these 12 moral commandments.
Je vais
I'm going to read out to you principle number 10 as appears in the article I was referring to, which is at French ERN 00540026 at English ERN 00539995. And the principle is the following: be absolutely modest and polite toward the people, but have a quick to ignite anger toward the enemy. In English, it is said, but have a quick to ignite anger toward the enemy. So does this somehow jog your memory? And if yes, what does this mean? What does it mean to have a quick to ignite anger toward the enemy?
but
It is my understanding that we should not at any cost negotiate with the enemy, and we had to consider them as the real enemy, and that we had to be firm with the enemy.
Est-ce que vous vous souvenez d'un
Do you remember a commandment regarding sexual relations outside of marriage?
est-ce que un tel comportement était permis?
Was such a form of behavior allowed, or was it forbidden?
but they kiru api
It was was allowed for the married couples. Initially, after they got married, they would be given the place for them to be together for a certain time. For example, they would be allowed to be together at 8 o'clock, and that they would be subject to monitoring.
Le principe,
Well, commandment number 6, as I can read it here, says the following: do not behave in any way that violates females. Generally speaking, do not do anything that impacts female morality. So do you remember having heard this? And did you ever see the outcome or the results of behavior that might have violated this commandment?
បាទ
I knew about that, but what could we do? Of course, as a human being, it was our nature to chit-chat with the opposite sex. But during the regime, that was prohibited. If I were to speak to a woman alone, then I might be accused of committing a moral offense. And this actually happened when a man met a woman after they were separated for a long time. They were accused of having a loud affair, and that they betrayed Angkar, and that they disobeyed or violated the discipline. And that's what I heard about this morality, that male and female combatants were not allowed to speak to one another freely.
et savez-vous quelles sanctions ont été prononcées
And do you know what punishment was meted out in such cases of indiscipline?
បាទដឹងគឺតែគេ
they would be punished, and they require us to abide by the commandment and not to do anything against it. And they made sure that we did not have the rights to talk to each other. In that regime, it was strict based on my practical experience at that time.
J'entends bien, monsieur.
I do understand, sir. However, can you tell us what kind of punishment was imposed? Was it merely rebuking the person and saying that he or she did not conduct him or herself well? Did it have to do with sending the person for re-education? Was the person imprisoned or quite simply executed?
បាទតែទោសបន្តិចបន្តិច
For the minor offense, the person would not be killed. They were simply called to a meeting, what we call the self-criticism meeting. So during that meeting, people would criticize the persons to help correct the person's behavior, to follow the path of the Angkar, not to deviate from the path set by the Angkar.
Bien, je vous remercie. Je n'ai pas d'autres questions.
Very well, I thank you. I have no further questions for the civil party, Mr. President.
President. Thank you, Judge. And now I give the floor to Counsel Victor Kope to put questions to the civil party.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Your Honours. Good morning, Council. Good morning, Mr. Civil Party. Just to be complete in relation to the subject of marriage and morality, let me turn your attention to something else that is provided for in Rule 6. Rule 6 that says, do not behave in any way that violates females. Mr. President, I'm reading from the exact same document Judge Lavergne was using, E3765. It says in that same paragraph, in relation to the setting up of a family, that there are two principles. Let me quote literally for you. As for the current issue of setting up a family, there is no obstacle. This is just based on two principles of the party. First, both parties agree. Second, the collective agrees, and then it is done. Why should this impact male-female morality? Question mark. Let me ask you about this first principle. Both parties agree. Do I understand your testimony correctly when I say that apparently you didn't agree to marry and therefore in conformity with this principle there wasn't any marriage?
The fact that I did not get married because I protested that I did not want to get married yet. And it is good for the marriage if both parties agree, because there would be no problem afterward. Some people who were arranged to get married, some of them, the couples did not match with each other. One side were more good looking than the other, another side were ugly, for example. I give you an example. One couple, one party had a very fair complexion like a Chinese person, and for the wife look very ugly. She has a dark complexion and very fat. So both couples, the wife and the husband, did not match well with each other from the appearance.
You spoke about 7 other couples that you were supposed to get married with. Let me first ask you, do you know any of their names today?
No, I cannot remember all the names because I was quite young at that time and I did not pay much attention to all the couples. I can remember only a few of them.
Do you know whether they were still together after 79 or whether they were divorced at some point in time?
I have no idea because we were separated since the Liberation Day. But Comrade Prong, who lived near me, and another comrade On, who also lived near me, so I know. But as for other people, we were separated after the Liberation Day.
But can you give us some indication as to whether any of those 7 couples did not agree to get married? Do you know any of them who said, I don't want to get married? And if you know this, do you know what happened subsequently?
As I told you earlier, that Comrade Ban and Comrade New, who protested not to get married, they were re-educated. They were re-educated to agree to get married, although both parties did not want to get married.
And do you know who it was that violated the first principle of Rule 6? Who was the cadre that violated that principle, telling those 2 cadres to be re-educated? Do you know?
I do not know much about the action taken regarding the people who committed offenses. I did not know much about what happened afterward.
All right, thank you, Mr. Civil Party. Let me now move to the questions I had prepared for you. Following up the first question of the judge in relation to the 920 Division 920 prisoners, you said that you didn't know any of the names. Were all those 100 names really read out to you?
Yes, I listened to the names read out to me.
Now, about half of those 100 Division 920 members also have aliases or nicknames, as it is called here in English. Were those nicknames also read out to you?
But I do not know one name. Is the name of a person named Chom.
There's a person Chum that you know. Is that what you're saying?
Are you talking about Chaum? I don't know Chaum. There's no the person named Chaum. When I talk about family matters, I talk about Comrade Ban, Comrade.
Maybe something is not going well in translation, Mr. Civil Party. My original question was, were you read all 100 names? And also the 50 or so aliases or nicknames of those people of Division 920.
Yes, I read, but I did not know a person, the name of a person.
Did you also have a look at the column that indicates the various title of those soldiers. Did you see to which company, to which battalion, to which regiment, etc. they belong? Did you also see that column in the list?
Sorry, he cannot have seen it because he hasn't read it. So perhaps the question is, was it read to you? In order to avoid confusion.
Fair enough. Was the column with the titles of the various soldiers read out to you as well? For instance, did the person who read the names to you also say, for instance, Mia Set was a combatant of the 2nd Company of Battalion 923?
Yes, I read, but I did not know the name well because perhaps their name have been changed. So I can say that I do not know any one of them, although they may be from Division 920.
I understand that you do not know the names. However, as I said, behind each name was the actual military function of that person. People were members of Battalion 923, 924, 921, Regiment 93. Everyone has a title. And my question to you is, having heard the military functions of all these people, do you have an explanation as to why you do not know any of them? I'm asking you because you yourself said yesterday that you were a Division 920 member in charge of a company. Were you in a completely different company, in a completely different battalion? And is that the reason that you do not know any of these 100 Division 920 prisoners?
I came from Division 920, but when I was read out the names of people in the list, I did not know any one of them. And I did not know whether they really came from Division 920. I did not know any one of them. Although we have been separated for years, if they came from a particular regiment, there should be a few names that I should be familiar with. But here, I'm not familiar with any of the names.
I understand that, Mr. Civil Party, but a lot of former division soldiers, be it 920, be it from 310 or 450, they frequently seem to know the battalion number or the regiment number or the company number. You said, like I said earlier, you were in charge of a company. What was the number of your company? What was the number of your battalion that you were in, if any?
My company is company number 3. In battalion 11.
Thank you. I might get back to that list. Mr. Civil Party, let me move on to some more questions about Division 920. Would you be in a position to say how many approximately combatants there were in Division 920? Let's take early 1977 as a benchmark. How many soldiers were in Division 920, let's say in February 1977? Do you know, roughly?
I do not remember well about the number of soldiers. But based on what I know, when I was dispatched to Ratnagiri province, there were 570 combatants. But this was the figure that I estimated. It is not the exact number because I was in charge of just a low-ranking soldier. If I were in the high position, I would know the exact number. And as I told you, this is a low number. It does not fit with the expected size of a division that it should have a larger number of soldiers.
Looking at document E3/849, Mr. President, would it be accurate that Division 920 had about 3,500 soldiers in February 77? Is that something that you could concur with?
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. One remark and objection. The Civil Party said specifically that he didn't know the number of soldiers. So it would be putting words in the witness's mouth. He said that there were a number of soldiers in the division during a period before 1977. It is obvious that the Civil Party is not able to confirm this information given the answer he gave earlier.
I know that he doesn't have exact figures. Ask an open question first, and then I confronted him with an actual number, and then I asked whether that would be his experience as well in terms of approximate numbers. So it's not terribly important, but I think I can ask that question. So, Mr. Civil Party, 3,500. Does that sound about right? Mr. Witness, did you hear me?
President, Mr. Wood, please give your response to the question. Now they have a document that say about the exact number of the soldiers in Division 920. And according to that document, it says that there are 3,500 soldiers in the division. So what is your response to this number? Because based on your previous response, you said that there were 570 soldiers in the division. So it's it's a different figures. So what is your reaction to this? And according to what we generally know, that a division should have about 10,000 men.
បាទដែលខ្ញុំតាម
Civil party. Yes, based on what I know, there are different hierarchies of military structures. There are brigades and there are divisions. And what I gave the number here is based on my estimation. At that time I saw the number of soldiers were small. It's a small size, and I can say that that division had the number of to the maximum not more than 700 men. And as I told you earlier, I was simply a low-ranking soldier, so I did not have the exact number.
You were simply a low-ranking soldier. Does that mean you're not a company commander anymore, or that you were not a company commander?
បាទនៅកងធំ
Yes, I was based at the division, but I was not fixed there because I was dispatched to the borderland areas and to patrol the borderland areas. Although I was part of the division, but I did not stay there fixed.
Sorry, were you a company commander, yes or no? We need answers to some of the questions.
បាទកង
Yes, I was the company commander. I was assigned to be in charge of the company, but I did not stay in that role for a long time. I was in that role for only a few months. And then I was assigned to patrol the border areas. And that's why I did not know much about the exact numbers of soldiers.
Is it about right when I say that approximately between 400 and 500 members of Division 920 were at any point in time arrested for possibly having committed treason?
President, Mr. Civil Party, please hold on, and the floor is given to the International Deputy Co-Prosecutor.
I'd ask counsel to provide the source for this information. I'm not sure how this witness will be in position, but he could certainly have been asked to give an estimate, but he should give the source, because the number I think he's talking about is not the total number of people who were arrested. It was the total number sent to S21. There were, of course, many others who, who would have been detained within Montelkiri, so he should be clear on the source of his information here.
That last remark, Mr. President, was evidence offered by the prosecution. I don't have it right now in front of me, but in the book by DC Chem on the purges in Montelkiri, I think the number of 400 and 500 is mentioned. I believe there's also testimony of a sector division commander agreeing to the number of 500 being mentioned.
Counsel, without a reference, thinking there is evidence
I
doesn't
will,
work.
I will reformulate my question. Mr. Civil Party, do you know roughly how many people within Division 920 were arrested?
បាទរឿងដែល
Based on what I know about the arrest, those people including Ta Chen, Ta Soy at the division level who were arrested, and there were also Comrade Kol, Comrade Ban, who were also arrested.
មិនដឹងតាក្បត់មិនដឹងតាស្អីទេ
I did not know whether they betrayed Angka or not, but when they were arrested, they were told and accused that they betrayed Angka.
That was not really an answer to my question, Mr. Civil Party, but it's not very important. I'll move on. Do you know whether Division 920 was originally, or at least the most part of its members, a division from the former North Zone? In other words, was Division 920 like Division 450 and 310 originally a North Zone division?
Again, I'd ask that he ask an open question, and if he's going to try to lead the witness with his incorrect information, he should have a source, because that's not my understanding of where the division came from.
As a matter of fact, I have now in front of me a source. It is E3/1664, ERN English only 00397617, footnote 137 of that book, the DC Cam book. It says Division 920 was formed out of one of the three former divisions of Koitun and K-Pok's Old North Zone. And that comes from the personal communication between Sarah Colm and good old Steve Hedder, dating December 13, 1997. There is also evidence in E3/8989, and that is evidence of a cadre that I was about to put before the witness, but if you allow me, I'll ask the question again. Mr. President, Mr. Civil Party, was Division 920, let me reformulate, where did most of the people of Division 920 originally come from?
I came to Division 920, that is in the North Zone. However, I did not know who actually created that division. I did not know whether it was Kai Pok or someone else who created that division.
Let me now move to that DC Cam interview E3/8989. Mr. Witness, Mr. Civil Party, this witness seems to be saying to DC Cam that 920 together with 450 and 310 were originally North Zone divisions. Let me read to you what he says at English ERN 01208401 and Khmer only 00958877. Question: you only know the North Zone divisions? Answer: yes, I do. Question: when Un is the commander of 310, when Un thought up his traitorous plot, were people from other divisions arrested too? For example, Division 920? Answer: yes, they were arrested. 3 divisions were implicated in the plot. Were people from all 3 divisions arrested? Yes, they were. Mr. Civil Party, do you know whether the arrests of Division 920 members had anything to do with arrests of members of Divisions 310 and 450?
I did not know about that. I did not know whether they were implicated in the so-called betrayal. I only knew about what happened at my division, and I cannot say about what happened in the other divisions or any arrest that happened in those divisions.
សម្បត្តិជាតាមដានរឿងនឹង
I did not know about those events at all, and as I said, I only knew what happened in my division, and that's what I can tell you about.
Mr. Civil Party, in this courtroom we heard evidence coming from Division 310 combatants indicating there was a plan for a rebellion, plan for a coup d'etat, a plan to store weapons in order to attack Radio Phnom Penh and Pochintong Airport. I will not read that evidence to you. Let me introduce some new evidence in relation to this plot, and then I would like to ask your reaction if you have any. Mr. President, let me start with document E3735. English ERN 003241168, French 00324-206, and Khmer 00087817. This witness speaks about Un, Division 310 commander, and he states as follows. At that time, he, Un, was linked to the Yun, who wanted to uprise in Phnom Penh. He, Un, planned an attack plot. First, let me read my... Madam.
Counsel, please hold on. And International Deputy Co-Prosecutor, it seems that you should know when you should rise.
Thank you, Mr. President. The document number that he read out, it doesn't match with an interview, so I'd like him to reread that. This has happened before where he's read out an incorrect number and it's turned out he was providing information that came from a confession. So I just want to be able to see what the actual document is before he reads it.
I think the prosecution is correct. I might have used the wrong number. It is E3/7535. It's in a DC Chem interview with a person whose name I will not mention. It's an interview 20 January 2005. Thank you for the interruption, Ms. Prosecution. Let me read again to you what this witness says. He's talking about Un, the division commander. He says, at that time, Un was linked to the Yun, who wanted to uprise in Phnom Penh. Un planned an attack plot. First, he called us for a secret meeting and instructed us that he planned to attack Phnom Penh. He told to deliberate and take control of Phnom Penh. He said that society was not good. 100 combatants, including me, were called to attend that meeting. Took on a truck full of weapons to meet him in Phnom Penh in the preparation to attack Phnom Penh. Unfortunately, the plot was compromised. Assault force as well as prevention force. We received bullets and munitions from foreign countries. And then a little further he says, It was not that easy, I guessed. If we could not defeat Pol Pot, we would appeal to Vietnam and called for force at the east under Chak Krai to help. First, they planned to attack from inside. When the plot was compromised, they called for help from the Yun. There is a second witness, also from Division 310, that is document E3/7540, English ERN 00337712, and French 00364-274. In late 1976, we were going to erupt, but it was exposed. The two North Zone divisions were readied from Wat Phnom northward. The East Zone, in charge to the south, was ready to fight, but it was exposed, and Koi Toon, the chairman of the North Zone, was arrested. Because of time, I will not read some more excerpt. Let me finish one small excerpt from another witness who was saying, that is E3/7583 at English ERN 00876558-59. I will give you the Khmer ERN a bit later, Mr. President. It says, it was a treasonous meeting because they were going to stage a rebellion. It was a CIA meeting. At that time, they were planning to attack the Pol Pot garrison, but they failed because Ta Un, who was in the same clique with Hun Sen, was arrested. End of quote. Mr. Civil Party, this is testimony evidence from former Division 310 cadres. You've heard what they were saying about a plot. Does any of this sound familiar to you? Were you asked questions when you were arrested about this plot described by Division 310 members? Or can you give any reaction at all?
I had no knowledge at all about this. I was arrested and I was accused of betraying Angkar since I was a part of the network of my commanders. I never heard about any revolt or rebellion against Angkar. And as I said, I was arrested as I was accused of betraying Angkar, but during my interrogation I said I never did that and that I was loyal to Angkar because I did not know anything at all about betrayal. I served Angkar with my full heart and I never thought of betraying at all. Thank you, Council, and thank you, Civil Party. It is now convenient for a short break. We take a break now and resume at 10:30. Court officer, please assist the Civil Party at the waiting room reserved for witnesses and civil parties and invite him back into the courtroom at 10:30. The court is now in recess.
សូមអញ្ជើញក្រោកឈរ